Hello, good evening and welcome to the Majority Show. This is our 50th show of Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show. Very glad to have you here with us tonight, going live out on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. I'm here with co-hosts Mary Devlin and David Griffiths.
Hello, everyone.
How are you guys tonight?
Oh, I'm great. How are you, David?
I'm good. Played golf today at a famous Scottish golf course, so I'm feeling on cloud nine. Very happy.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so what we're going to cover tonight?
Well, tonight I will be exposing yet another big nationalist lie.
And I'll be talking about the Scottish Government's eagerness to ban all alcohol advertising in Scotland.
And we'll be talking about Nicola Sturgeon's very, 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 very bad week.
A bad week, yes. And of course, we have Zoomer of the week. Yum.
Right. So we will be back in just a second. Right, welcome back. Welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show. We are doing a new fundraising drive for 2023. Our target is to get 200 people. That means you watching this show to pledge £5 or £10 a month so we can amplify your voice throughout 2023. We do lots of stuff. We do this show, of course. We do billboard campaigns. You've probably all seen those. We write articles occasionally. We do tons of memes and social media. And we have 50,000 followers. So please, if you can, we'd like you to help us keep doing that through 2023. Everything helps, even a small amount. If you can all afford £5 a month, that would be perfect for us because it all builds up and all gives us more power.
And please show someone you love them this Christmas by getting them an exclusive Resign Sturgeon mug. They're all at reasonable prices, and a little bit from the sale of each one helps to support this show.
And as always, we'd like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and at United Against Separation for supporting the show by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages, from where I know many of you are watching right now.
And as this list of requests goes on, we would like to ask you to remember to subscribe to YouTube for alerts, especially if you're watching this on Twitter right now. You can't get your comments onto the show from Twitter for some reason. I don't know why, but you can from YouTube and from Facebook. So please do that.
And wherever you are, please, as we always say, like, share, comment, tell your friends. Just extend the reach of the show at the click of a button. It really is that simple, guys.
And as usual, I'll be handling all the comments tonight. That's why my eyes are going from here to there all evening. So please keep your comments short, and I'll try to get as many of them up as I can.
Right. So coming up, we have a special guest. It's going to be Donna from Aberdeeen, who held up UK flag at the recent nationalist protests. So we'll be back in a second with that. Here we go. Right, last week after the Supreme Court decision was announced, a very limited amount of nationalists decided to go out to protest. The stragglers in the rain. And being shouted at by Nicola Sturgeon. I'm not sure that's my idea of fun, but anyway, perhaps some people like that. Anyway, most of our followers would have seen a video of a lady who went out to one such protest in Aberdeeen to protest their protests. And we've got a wee clip of that coming up here.
Because I wanted to come out and celebrate what's happened today. I think it's great. I think it's shown why we've got laws in this country, and I think all of Scotland is not the SNP. So I think just come down, hear what they've got to say. They've never got any answers for AMD. I wish they would just get on with the day job, get the economy sorted. They've got devolved powers that they can't manage under. How on earth are they going to do any better under a full independent?
Right. So anyway, there's a bit more of it, of course, but that was the main part of it. It was one of our most popular tweets ever, over 4,000 on the initial likes on the initial tweet, and many, many more on Facebook and so on. And right on the line, we have Donna here now. I'm just going to say that the line isn't that great. So if we do get cut off, Donna, we want to say thank you on behalf of everyone who watched the video for doing that, for saying what we were all thinking. So, okay.
Thank
you. Yeah, great. There we go. We've got a little bit of a delay, I think. So we'll see if we can get around that. So can you tell us what made you go down there in the first place?
Sure. Well, first of all, happy St. So the night before, I'd seen the advert for the SNP rally. There was going to be one in Centre and one in Inverurie. One in Inverurie I was totally shocked about because their speaker was going to be Alex Salmond. And he was going to be the speaker called Women for Change, which I found was very strange. So anyway, I told my husband that regardless of the outcome, the town, and I was with me, and I rolled it up high with pride. So
very good.
Morning, of course, when the judgment was announced, I was absolutely delighted, and that it was a protest. It was very much a celebration in my mind.
Good.
Yes, that's very good. Were there many protesters there and nationalists?
About 120.
Okay. And I saw on the video, we saw that you had, they were trying to put their flags over you and stuff like that. What did you think of that kind of shenanigans?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize that I was actually being filmed. I thought it was an interview, which is a radio station. So
Still there?
I think
afterwards, when he stopped recording, someone that thought.
Right. I think the line's breaking up a little bit. So what we're going to do, I think we'll have to leave it there.
And I did.
Maybe what we can do actually is we can record an interview with you for next time with a better connection, and then we'll put that out across all the social media channels. So it's been great to have you with us tonight. Thank you very much. A big congratulations for reminding everyone that it was actually a celebration.
Thank you, Donna.
Well done, Donna. Bravo.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Right.
Bye, Donna.
I think she's completely gone there. All right. Okay. Well, that was good. All right.
Excellent to have her on the show. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's important actually to say. You know, this is not like it is a thing to celebrate. It's the unity of the UK. It was confirmed by the Supreme Court, and they slammed the door on this, separatist nonsense. It's been going on for far too long in this country. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Been a very bad week for Nicola Sturgeon, so let's get on to that.
Yes.
Okay, where are we? Okay, as we said, it's been a terrible week for Nicola Sturgeon. She's in disarray. The Supreme Court. You think they might have planned a bit better for the response? For what was going on in for the response to the Supreme Court judgment, but shouting that everyone else in Scotland that is not a nationalist is a democracy denier seems to be their plan. Seems to be a bit crazy, really. But well, where do they have to go? I suppose they don't really have to go anywhere. First of all, de facto referendum idea is being going around a lot, and it's it seems to be losing credibility by the second. I pointed out quite a few problems with it on Twitter, for example. How can you, if anyone, let's just say a single person, high-profile voter says, "Well, I voted SNP, but I didn't vote because of independence." Well, that's scuppered. I mean, there's so many holes in it. When we actually ran a thing saying how many holes are in this, more than Swiss cheese, more than fill the Albert Hall, and more than a sieve. So it's a very leaky proposition. David, do you get anything to say about the de facto referendum?
Well, I mean, leaving aside as Nicola Sturgeon would call it, the unprecedented notion of the largest political party in Scotland voluntarily going into a UK general election on a single issue manifesto. I mean, this has literally never even been considered, never been attempted before. But there are numerous additional considerations. For a start, the SNP has never won 50% of the popular vote in a UK general election, not even in 2015, when they won 56 out of 59 seats. So where does that leave them exactly?
Someone had brought that up actually the other day, and I was like, I didn't have time to check it, but they didn't have a majority then. In truth,
the SNP and Green total did exceed 50% marginally, but the SNP, they weren't in this fake coalition as they are now. But I mean, let's face it, the Greens only use that to play the system anyway, so they can get more listed seats. They're not Green at all. We know that, the SNP. Secondly, of course, the First Minister and her senior colleagues have been asked repeatedly, okay, what happens if you don't get 50%? That if the SNP Green Alba Party don't get 50%, is that going to be the end of the independence movement? You won't get an answer to that one, guys. Not a chance. No answer at all. The only answer we did see, which was of interest, was Keith Brown admitting that on Sunday show, he admitted that Sturgeon won't lead the party into the next Holyrood election. So that's clearly the agreed position now. I mean, he didn't come out and flatly deny it, but he very much didn't say she was going to do it. He did say he thought she would lead them into the next UK general election, which will clearly be set up as her swan song. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So, but just imagine though, if the First Minister does go ahead with this plan, as she seems certain that she is intending to do, if she loses it, effectively, this is an election which she has said, well, of course, it's being fought on this particular battleground here. And if she doesn't get the exact total which she claims she needs, where does that leave her? I'll tell you where it leaves her. It leaves her a three-time loser in genuine and de facto referendums. She lost in 2014, she lost in 2016, and she's setting out to lose this one as well. If you've got a 0-for-3 record, I don't think.
I mean, it doesn't matter really. I mean, she's got a 0-for-2 record anyway. So,
exactly, that's true.
But a 0-for-1 record is enough, to be honest, right?
You're quite right. Of course, you're right. But the fact is,
followers along all this time.
You're right. The fact is, in the throes of her denial and all of this, she's of those two facts, she's still saying, "Oh no, we can win with this vote." But if she loses with this ridiculous vote, which she's come up with herself, well, I mean, that's just the end. I mean, she's going to have zero credibility. So it's clear that the SNP are already beginning to think about, the time beyond.
I mean, okay, even it's a lose-lose for them. Even if they win, it can just be ignored. It would have to be something like 70% or 65% of the vote really to be serious, right? Yeah. I mean, that's realistic. I mean, realistically, if they said, okay, they've got 65% of the vote consistently, which maybe even Alistair Jack said the other day, people would go, okay, that's political force. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe that UK should be broken up under any circumstances. No. That's a different matter. But some people might say that a consistent majority could be a trigger, right? Mm. So. But 50+1 is not good enough. It's not good enough for a de facto referendum. It's not good enough for the SNP's own constitution. It's not good enough for this level of constitutional change at all. And it's just, it should be thrown out. Now, I think as time goes on, as these holes, more and more of these holes will become apparent to the SNP membership themselves, right? Yeah. Some discussion this week between whether it should actually be a Holyrood election or a general election should be the de facto referendum. But if it's a Holyrood election, well, the Supreme Court just said they don't have any jurisdiction over UK issues, so that doesn't make any sense. And there's some discussion as well, I suppose, as whether it's even legal to have this idea of a de facto referendum and using the general election, because surely they would have to put money into that, and that money would be is promoting the cause of independence. Again, it's something that's ultra vires. It's outside of the remit of the Scottish government. So I don't know. It seems a bit of a weird one, to be honest. Go ahead, Div. You want to say that?
No, indeed. But I think more and more senior SNP figures are beginning to realise that this isn't really going to happen, guys. I mean, I'll talk later on about one very senior guy who's spoken out, and he could actually have been saying stuff that's come straight from this show in terms of his analysis of where that leaves the nationalist movement. But really, I mean, you're into new waters now. This stuff has never even been attempted before.
Well, it's a movement that's no moving. So I don't know. It's a nationalist static.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. As Woody Allen said, you know, for a shark to have momentum, it needs to keep swimming. I think what we have here in our hands is a dead shark, and he's right. It's just there is nothing left for them to do now, really, other than just whine. But we're used to that.
A lot of whining still going on.
So May Much points out that 50% of a low turnout is not a mandate or a win. So it's going to be quite low.
Well, I think this is the point that the referendum itself is a gold standard. The 85% turnout, masses, millions of people voting for it, a decisive result that everyone should have respected, wasn't respected, and that will always stand there, because I think the SNP has never got as many votes as the number of votes that were for no in the referendum. And that's no surprise, because due to the high turnout.
No, they haven't even got close to 2 million votes.
Another problem they have now is with civil servants. Going to close down. There's been so much talk now of closing down civil servants' work and independence. As we all know, Sturgeon is spending £1.5 million on this pretendy ref anyway. And then there's this issue of the 350 million constitution budget, which has been used in part to create fake foreign embassies and to extend this kind of, this idea that Scotland actually is independent, even though it isn't. Anyway, it does seem somewhat bizarre that UK civil servants are working on breaking up the UK. But not that bizarre, because one of them today just actually said that his job, this guy Ken Thompson here, who is the Scottish Government's Director of Strategy and External Affairs, says my job is breaking up the UK, the kingdom. Right? He says, I'll tell you a secret about why I've got strategy in my job description. It's a word that gets me through some doors in Whitehall, and then they discover what I'm actually there to talk about is breaking up the kingdom. I say fire this guy straight away.
Absolutely.
Absolutely disgusting. That is not a job of any civil servant to break up the UK. It just is not.
No.
And I think he should actually, you should be fired, booted, put up the arse, get out.
Well, John T. Scott says Westminster are now on the case and beginning to squeeze the rogues.
Oh, yes.
A lot more squeezing is needed, I think.
Yes. I mean, what do you think of that, David?
I love that. I really like that comment. But there's an interesting comment here. Why do we hate Scotland so much? Why do we want to remain shackled to Westminster? Wow. Well, we love Scotland very much, Lorraine. And the reason that we want to remain within the United Kingdom is it will save Scotland being plunged into certain economic catastrophe, which is what you appear to want. So I would ask you the same question. Why do you seek an impoverished Scotland? Why on earth would you want to do that? Just because Nicola Sturgeon didn't like Margaret Thatcher 40 years ago? So what? Nobody cares. It's not going to happen.
Of course, it's not just an economic argument. We don't want our communities broken up. We don't want the country's territorial integrity destroyed. We don't want who knows who's going to come in. Yeah, of course, hard border. We don't know. I mean, which has been explicit now. This explicitly said there's going to be a border and border checks. Who wants that? Only nutters want that. So,
I mean, this is the same people are calling for freedom of movement. You saw Ian Blackford talking about it today. Freedom of movement, sure, okay, because they think that the SNP think they've got something over the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, and particularly the Labour Party, by saying that they don't back freedom of movement anymore. Well, there wouldn't be freedom of movement between Scotland and England either, guys. Not with a massive wall between Gretna and Berwick, which is what it would take. So they haven't got any. They've, as we said earlier, they've come up with nothing in the time that they've been planning this eventuality, they've known that it's highly unlikely that they wouldn't get this referendum agreed. I mean, we've said for months on here, there's not a chance that this referendum will be allowed. And what have they come up with? A load of absolute back of a fag packet nonsense, barely coherent rubbish.
It's an insult to the back of the fag packet plans. Really, you know, if I was a back of the fag packet plan, I'd be like, I don't think so. You know, this is not even up to our standard. The fag packet, back of the fag packet association standards.
Quite, yes, indeed. So, well, long may it continue. They can keep whining as long as they like. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about the nonsense they're talking in the lie section, but.
Right, well, anyway, Alistair Jack was given a beating the other day. I don't have a video of it, but it's all over the internet, basically saying that the screws are going to get turned.
Yep.
And then also
about time.
Yeah, about time. And I think, you know, if they it's about time. We need to actually just do it. And it doesn't need to be just a constant pressure. A little bit, not too much to get them all up in arms, you know, because they like to do that. They're just constant pressure and it's just assertion of authority. That's what it's really about. Scottish Business UK, Robert Kilger, who's a friend of the show, actually, he said that the Scottish government was behaving like a South American banana republic, and said his group of businessmen would launch legal action against any spending. So we'll try and get Robert on the show to talk about that as well. So basically under fire from the UK government and from people's movements as well, and we'll keep you informed about that. That's in continuing Sturgeon's bad week. Mary's got some
Yes, I do. I think everyone probably enjoyed, if you've seen it, the woman who was heckling Sturgeon at the conference. Now, Sturgeon was there. It was a conference on violence against women, but the protesters were angered that any discussion of men trying to get into women's safe spaces using Sturgeon's controversial self-ID laws was excluded. In other words, they weren't allowed to talk about anything like that. They were banned from bringing the subject up. So have you got the video, Mark?
Yes, I got it here.
Shame on you. You've fermented this culture in Scotland that basically tells women are bigoted for standing up for women's rights. I see you, and thousands of women around Scotland see you as well. And those of you who are sitting here complicit, keeping your mouths shut while women have actually been raped by males who have self-ID'd as women, and that's got nothing to do with trans rights. And I support trans rights and have done for 3 decades now, and I'll continue to. But
yeah, strong words there, definitely.
Well, afterwards, J.K. Rowling wrote, scenes, in spite of all careful precautions, the First Minister has been accidentally exposed to some freedom of speech.
Oh my God.
Heads will surely roll. And then in brackets she put, if nobody's yet sent that heckler a crate of whatever her favourite tipple is, do please send me her details.
Brilliant.
So we don't know who the lady was, but she was giving it to Nicola, as she should.
Yeah, and I think then the clip goes on much longer than that as well. It's well worth watching the whole thing. I think this is the issue, and something that we saying a little bit here is like, why are they so single-minded on this particular issue? And that actually extends to some extent to certain Labour Party activists who are also pushing this issue against the wishes of what seems to be the majority of women in Scotland.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been about, as I say, a bad week. We like a bad week for Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, but these bad weeks are coming on the end of a lot of other bad weeks. Yeah. Right? I mean, she's had constant bad headlines, probably for 6 months now, right? And everyone is, you know, every week voters must be leaving, and we've always said this: with nowhere to go, what was the point in voting for SNP if there's not going to be any independence referendum? So, what's the point of the SNP, and what's the point of Nicola Sturgeon? So, is she going to leave? David, just before we move on, what do you think?
In the past, we've speculated about this and a lot of it's been wishful thinking. I would say now it's a certainty. I will stake my reputation on it right now. Nicola Sturgeon will not be party leader going into the next Holyrood elections. Not going to happen. I guarantee
Holyrood, but with general elections, do you think she'll last that long?
I think a lot depends how well Rishi Sunak does in the role. If he doesn't feel compelled to have an early election, which I don't think he will, I don't think it would be in his interest to do so. The Labour Party is well clear right now, so he's not going to call an election anytime soon. If the next UK general election is in 2 years' time, there's a chance that might be her swan song. But beyond that, no, she's finished, and she is clearly what's the word? She's seeking her next role, actively seeking her next role beyond politics. That goes without question. I think it's for real now. I mean, we've been talking about it, hoping it will happen, but now.
Well, unfortunately, the history of nationalist leaders is that one, they overreach. Their constitutional overreach in some ways. You can many versions of that throughout history, but another one is that they do stay on longer than they really should.
True.
So until the very end, in the bunker perhaps.
Well, unfortunately, nationalist leaders before have usually got shot, but
that's true.
That won't happen here. But
although there are some, I think David will talk about the increasing calls to violence a little bit later. To paraphrase Churchill, it's not the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end. It's close to the end of the end. Okay. Up next, I just made that up. Up next, it's going to be David with the big nationalist lie.
Yay.
Right, David, take it away.
Take it away. Okay, so today's big lie is one we've heard constantly from senior SNP and Scottish Green MSPs and MPs since the ruling of the Supreme Court was made public. And the big lie is, in the 2021 election, we were given a mandate by the Scottish people to hold a referendum. To refuse us the right to hold this referendum is denial of democracy. The number of times we've heard the phrase denial of democracy in the last few weeks is just staggering. So it's clearly a scripted line which has come straight from SNP headquarters. Now, we know that they stood in the 2021 Holyrood election with the SNP and Greens. Individually, that is, they didn't stand together. They both stood in a manifesto pledges to hold an independence referendum in the first half of this parliamentary term, which lasts, I think, well, that first half would be the end of October next year. That's why they tried to do it at the end of October next year. Following the Supreme Court ruling, of course, that the Scottish Government does not, in fact, have the right to hold a referendum, which we could have told them, without UK Government approval, the SNP and Greens are feeling awfully, awfully angry. So you've seen this line scripted so many times, and you've seen their reaction to it. And the reaction, they're trying to put a brave face on it. So Keith Brown at the weekend on the Sunday show was interviewed, and he had that telltale look in his face that John Swinney always has, which is that A, he's not enjoying what he's saying, and B, he doesn't believe a word he's saying either. You've seen that diffident look, awful to watch. And so Brown's comment was, this ruling will see the Yes movement galvanised to reach new heights. Okay, if you say so. And he said also, though, interestingly, this ruling shattered forever the notion of the UK as a voluntary union of nations.
We did that last week. But I think there's a little bit of confusion on that with the UK government as well. They've been saying to some extent that it is a voluntary union, but I think there's not a clarification is necessary that it was a voluntary union, I think, is the key point, right?
Absolutely. So let's just talk about that for 1 minute. The UK is not a union of equals or otherwise. The UK was formed in 1707 as a result of the voluntary union of two kingdoms to become one, the United Kingdom. That's it. That's where the union started and ended. What was formed was not a union, it was a country.
When you were younger, I should say, you never called the UK a union. It was a nonsense.
Absolutely, it's new. It's nationalist phraseology. It's a nationalist framing of the discussion. They're trying to make out that the UK is either like the old Russian Federation, the Soviet Union, or like the EU. That's what they're trying to do. The nationalists.
It's kind of weird because they want to get back into the EU, right?
Yeah. That's what they say. Yeah, but they're talking about voluntary unions. Yeah, but if it's that voluntary, well, surely you can understand the nation's desire to leave, as we did in 2016. But you fast forward to today, and you hear these people now saying, "Okay, well, the fact that we can't hold this referendum means there's no democratic path for Scotland to leave the UK." Now, we did talk about this last week. Yes, there is. At any time, UK government could grant a Section 30. All you've got to do is persuade them, and to persuade them, the UK government has already made it clear they would be prepared to to take this step once it's established that a significant majority of Scots support independence over a prolonged period. That's never happened.
Yes.
You're in a situation where it's lukewarm at best. And I just want to quote Andy Whiteman, who's a very learned, very capable former Scottish Greens MSP, and he sat on that committee, Linda Fabiani's committee, which investigated Sturgeon in terms of whether she was in the House, and he was very outspoken then, and he stepped down shortly afterwards. Now, he has said only this week, he himself, who is nationalist, will not support a second independence referendum until there is sustained support for it. And he added, referendums should be about affirming popular opinion, not taking a divided electorate over the 50% threshold. Now, that could have come straight from this show, that line. Absolutely. Let's just And he went on to say the Scottish Parliament does not have the power to hold an independence referendum, so it's a mandate in name only. Similarly, Shetland Islands Council couldn't hold a legally binding referendum on secession either, as that too would be unlawful. That's it. That is it. And if senior pro-nationalist figures are seeing this, then Sturgeon's goose is well and truly cooked, because she can't fool all the people all the time. You just can't do that. So it's this very clear and becoming
a good attempt.
Exactly. Well, yeah, many nationalists have seen through this ridiculous Heath Robinson attempt to just force an unwanted referendum on a frankly indifferent electorate. It's not going to happen. Exactly as we've said.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. There's a point by this guy David Jameson, who I was on that undercounter thing, and he basically said, if you look at ordinary people, they're not bothered by this. They don't know much about it, but they know. But it takes a bit of movement. What he's basically saying is you need to have a movement, and it's not sparked any movement, right? There's no mass million people in the streets or anything, as if that could make a difference to some extent. But it does affect the intelligentsia, as it were. And he said it's over, and other there's a group I think I mentioned before of like socialists who are nationalists as well. They're like, no, this isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen anymore. There's no way it can happen, because ultimately most people do abide by the rule of law, and when the law comes down, people are like, well, it's a fair cop, gov, a bit like that. So indeed. I think there is that much to it, that the inner circle are beginning to say, not necessarily the inner circle, but the SNP, Nationalist Commentariat, or whatever it's called. They're like, this isn't going to happen. And why is Sturgeon led us here? And then that starts, okay, why has she done this? Why has she wasted all this time? Why she's pursuing this de facto referendum? It's going to make it even worse. Actually, and that's the thing they consider. I say to you, when the idea was a pretendia ref, you say, why would nationalists take part in this? Because if they lose, it's going to be worse. And if they win, they don't get in. So why should they take part in it? It's like, so they're kind of like up a certain creek without a paddle.
Well, Alan saying they think if they do more shouting than the silent majority, there must be more of them who support independence. So it's empty vessels and all that. Most noise.
Well, there's definitely a lot of that going on there. Right. Okay. I think that was pretty good. These nationalist lies are good. If you have some ideas for a big nationalist lie that you would like David to tackle, please send in.
That would be great, guys. That would be terrific.
That would be great to give you some extra work there. David. Right. Okay. So I've lost my place in my notes, but I think
it's me coming up next, and I'm going to be talking about the proposed alcohol advertising ban in Scotland.
Good. Right. That is a shocker.
And then it'll be Zoomer of the Week. Of course.
That's right. Okay. Well, that's good. Thanks for keeping track of where we are. All right. Back in a second.
Well, tonight I wanted to bring everyone's attention to, I guess it's a consultation paper that's been put out by the Scottish Government. It's a new one, and it's all talk about introducing restrictions and bans around the promotion and advertising of alcohol. Okay, so they're looking at the possibility of banning advertising and promotion on alcohol just about everywhere. That would include public places. So they're saying that the suggestion would be a complete ban on any and all promotion of advertising of alcohol in public places. Right? They're also talking about banning it in print advertising, newspapers, magazines, etc. Online advertising. So that would be advertising on websites or in social media. And on social media, they're talking about banning it not just from the alcohol, manufacturer or promoter, but people actually exchanging messages about, if you share it with one of your friends or something like
What?
that might be banned as
Really?
well. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
They want to.
I'm going to call Elon Musk and tell him not to do that.
Yeah.
Right, that's not right.
I mean, we'll talk later about how can you possibly enforce any of this, but they're talking about, so that's we've talked about all public places, all print advertising, online advertising, TV and radio advertising, cinema. They're even talking about banning it at any sports sponsorship. So you wouldn't be allowed to have any alcohol branding on merchandise or, on caps or anything like that, or in any of the boarding that goes around, like in stadiums or, pitches and so on.
Goodness.
They're asking questions about should they limit the number of drinks that people can buy at stadiums and so on.
For God's sake, I mean, give people a rest.
It goes further.
What? So who's behind this consultation, first of all?
Well, I'm not really sure, to be honest. It's just and I don't even know who it really goes out to, but I've been reading about it. I don't know if you have that there, Mark, but it's Stephen McGowan.
Yeah, from the Daily Mail. Yeah.
And he's got a blog and about licensing laws. And so he's drawn our attention to it. So as well as the ban at sports sites and so on, it would also be at all events sponsorship. So you couldn't have any music events or cultural events.
So it wouldn't be tea in the park anymore.
Teetotal
in the park.
Tea in the park, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's interesting. Steve McGowan's a sports reporter for the Daily Mail. He's a football guy, so he's obviously coming at it from the point of view of the impact on football if you lost all the sponsorship, because presumably they didn't stop gambling advertising as well. You think.
Well, maybe that's next.
Well,
someone done that already.
Someone here says it has Marie Todd's name on it on the government website.
All right, okay.
I don't know who
Mr.
Marie
Tommy
Todd.
Boy. Thank you for that.
So you wouldn't be able to have any like beer festivals or anything like that?
Oh no, actually, not a beer festival. It's just a beer festival in its own right.
I don't know, but you wouldn't be allowed to promote it.
All right, okay.
Or no one would be allowed to see any writing or any pictures of alcohol or anything like that. So Stephen McGowan is basically saying that, if they enact this, if any of this, is enacted, it will basically be like the most profound, piece of legislation for the alcohol industry and the retail industry and everything around alcohol that's ever happened. It'll be a kind of, prohibition.
Yeah, well, prohibition, someone said here, prohibition clearly didn't work in the USA. The sales of whiskey increased our exports, so banning ads is a great way of getting press. Okay, well, it's a bit of a reverse psychology, I suppose, in that sense. Some Dale says, this is the new temperance movement. Oh, we've seen this. I mean, wasn't Devi Sridhar she had something before she came on about that she was... trying to ban alcohol across the world, something like that.
Oh my God!
You remember that bar in Glasgow which was raided at the time of COVID when there were some restrictions?
Dancing.
That's right, because of dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Is this bloody Oliver Cromwell? Are we for real? You can't dance and you can't have alcohol. Guys, Puritans. That was 500 years ago. It doesn't work. 400 years ago. Sorry, but.
Well, this is all springing from the idea put forward by the anti-alcohol campaigners and accepted by the Scottish government that alcohol is inherently bad and that we all need to be protected from it, that we're not adult enough to make our own decisions.
Nanny state, I suppose,
and
might
that
call it.
even if we see some advertising for alcohol, then we're just all going to go nuts and just go.
Well, if it is a particularly good ad, it might go.
And go wildly drunk. So,
but let's not forget, though, guys, we've seen limitations on alcohol use attempted by the SNP before with the minimum unit alcohol pricing, and what was the correlation there? Deaths started shooting up. So, typical whack-a-mole, utter nonsense from the SNP, doing something in isolation, in a silo, not having any consideration for what the wider impact might be. Utter dreck. This should never happen.
They're not considering the wider impact at all.
not
The
at
whole
all.
thing is just seen completely from, I mean, everything that's in there is just completely from the negative point of view.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously they're worried about, I mean, where it comes from, I guess, is that there's a concern about people who are alcoholics or people who can't control the drinking. And they've said, oh, they don't want young people to see, you know, alcohol advertising either.
Well, as Dale says, they're trying to infantilize us all. You know, it's like you can't make decisions for yourself. The government must make decisions for you. And then my inner libertarian is going to come out and say, well, you know, leave us alone, Mr. Big Government or Mrs. Big Government. We can actually make decisions for ourselves. We can have a glass of wine at dinner. We don't go out and, you know, knock down the wheelie bins. That's not what we do generally. I mean, it might depend on your neighbourhood.
It's not,
but you know, that type of thing. Or we don't have an alcohol problem, trivializing real alcoholic.
Well, some people have problems with alcohol.
Right.
But an awful lot of people just enjoy alcohol and drink responsibly. I mean, we love having a glass of wine with dinner. You know, you might meet up with your friend in the pub and have a drink. But we're basically not being trusted that we can see alcohol advertising and not act responsibly.
Well, it's going to have surely has a huge effect on Scots whiskey producers.
Well, none of that is mentioned. They're not asking any questions about what the impact might be on the whiskey manufacturers or any other alcohol manufacturers. If they don't sell as much, then people might lose their jobs. Or, for example, off sales. So another thing they want to ban, or they're talking about possibly banning, is any type of promotion in shop windows. Right. So if you're in off sales, you wouldn't be allowed to have any posters or any pictures in the window. It would basically, like off sales and places or supermarkets that sell alcohol. It would be like, you know, like the way sex shops used to be, or you know, it would be like black windows or something like that. You wouldn't be allowed any promotion. But there's no discussion in this consultation about, you know, what do you think the impacts might be, or what could, you know, how might this, you know, harm the industry or anything like that. They're not interested. It's basically all talking about the harmful effects of alcohol, and alcohol is bad. And I guess they're not saying let's ban alcohol. That might be the next step.
Well, it would be the next step.
They want to ban all the.
Of course, it would be the next step.
Well, they're talking about.
They ban smoking in pubs, for example.
They're talking about treating alcohol in supermarkets and shops, maybe like the way it's gone with tobacco, where you have to have it behind the counter, locked up in a cupboard, and with no pictures and no, you know, nice, you know. Yeah,
just like North Korea, I guess. I mean, what kind of thing? What people think up these things? You think, right? I mean, how many people are actual alcoholics? Why don't we spend the money and the time and the energy actually treating those people? Right, and saying and giving them support, and even if that comes in the sense of taking a small amount of the tax that's already on, you know, liquor or alcohol, then, you know, and ring fence that for treatment of alcoholism. Well, what's wrong with that? I think most people would think that's an entirely reasonable idea, rather than just going, oh yeah, you know, alcohol's bad. You know, some people are alcoholics. Oh yeah, we'll just ban everything then.
Ban it for everyone.
Everything. It's like you know, them and the Greens and their, you know, against the what they call those things, drive-throughs. It's like, what? Yeah. You know, just leave us alone. Leave us alone. You know.
Well, the Scottish Government have said it is crucial that any potential restrictions to reduce the volume of alcohol marketing are as comprehensive as possible. So they're trying to do as much as they possibly can to ban as much alcohol advertising or marketing in everywhere in public life as they possibly can. And then you have to think about, well, who's going to enforce this? So is there going to be some kind of new regulator is going to be set up? Of
course, it's going to be a whole host of, you know, people, you know, employed to police this and to make regulations and so on, which of course is the point of the whole thing, to get more people on the payroll vote.
Yeah, they'll be aware that in America, you know, in America, the guys who raided the Waco compound. They were from the ATF, the
ATF, yeah.
Department of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms. And you can just see Sturgeon will be thinking, I wasn't that, but this will be great. We'll have our own, that'll be our own FBI next. For goodness sake. Oh my God, can you imagine? Oh dear.
Well, one of the worst things about this, just to finish up, is to say that they're basically saying they don't even want to include talking to the alcohol industry about this consultation. So it's a consultation paper, but they don't want to consult the alcohol industry about it.
Oh, isn't that
it's shocking and it's disgraceful.
Oh, she would just say to them, look, I know you were going to interrupt me. I know what you're going to say there, so I don't want you to say it. I didn't say anything. Oh, but I know you were going. I knew what you were. Don't you think that about me? Or did you see her with what's his name, Peter Adam Smith from SGP? Sure. Oh, I just what are you saying, women? But yeah, that's obviously where it's headed.
Well, as Dale said, there Scottish people don't. Well, do they like to be micromanaged? I don't think anyone really likes to be micromanaged. It's micromanagement, right? It's just like
Well, it's everyone is going to be. Is going to have to suffer
collective punishment for everyone.
Yeah, because
the beatings will continue
a few people
until morale improves.
Yes,
but they're a really good point. The bitter lot should be gone soon when they all get wrecked. Well, as pro-smoking people often point out, when non-smoker Adolf Hitler shot himself, the relieved fellow occupants of the bunker all lit up cigarettes in relief. So there you go. So it's
that's a nice
not
story.
always the case.
Thanks, David.
Okay. Okay, well, someone says here, let's just ban the Scottish Government instead. Well, we can certainly agree with that. Great segment there, Mary. Thank you very much. Coming up. Oh, no, I always get this bit wrong. All right. Things you can do right now to support the show. Yes. You can make a monthly donation. That would be really great, And we appreciate your support, financial support. You can buy a T-shirt or the mug, which we showed you earlier. Those are good. They're good, and people are actually buying them for a Christmas present.
And we have a 10% discount, so
that's right.
It tells you down here how to use your coupon.
Use it somewhere.
Show 10 to get a 10% discount.
Right. So very good. And you can, of course, subscribe and tell your friends and do all that, because every week we need more viewers. That's good to amplify your voice. Coming up, it is the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week. Right, David, you're actually up first.
I am up first for a wee change. Okay, my Zoomer of the Week this week is Times journalist Kenny Farquharson. For years now, you may have seen him on Twitter. He's on there a lot, unashamedly and eagerly promoting the nationalist cause in his own way. In his articles for the Times, he will constantly make reference to the fact that breaking up the UK is a respectable cause, and you're thinking, oh my God, what are you saying, man? Anyway, this week he excelled himself in the immediate aftermath of the Supreme Court ruling. So in his first article following the ruling last week, Kenny made several claims, obviously, which he stored up in readiness for sharing with the world. And each of these could have come straight from Peter Morell's written instructions from Butte House. First off, Kenny claimed that Rishi Sunak could alter his stance on a second independence referendum from now is not the time to never. This, Kenny warned us, would take Scotland and Britain to a very dark place. Right, okay. He went on to say the UK government risks civil unrest and violence if independence supporters have no democratic path to achieving their aims. Right, so in other words, Kenny is dictating, much like John Major and Tony Blair keep doing in Northern Ireland. They keep saying, oh, don't you mess about with the Good Friday Agreement, otherwise the IRA will commit atrocities again. They haven't gone away, And it's exactly what he's saying. He's dictating to the UK Prime Minister that he must give a regional protest party the means to break up the United Kingdom. And if he doesn't, there will be acts of terrorist violence.
Yeah, I think that's I'm totally shocked. I picked up on that, and I just think it's disgusting, actually. And it says UK must bend to nationalist fantasy that democracy is being denied or risk violence. So how about we don't submit to the threats, maintain the UK, and jail anyone who threatens violence instead?
Here. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Finally, unbelievably, Kenny concluded his article by telling us a wise Prime Minister, whether Tory or Labour.
So he's so condescending.
Yeah, exactly. But if he knows what's good for him, he will put Scotland on a comparable footing to Northern Ireland. And according to Kenny, this would take much of the heat out of Scotland's constitutional debate. Are you insane? Seriously, Northern Ireland. So in other words, the way to deal with separatists who are determined to break up the UK is to appease them and keep making concessions to them. Kenny, no, it's not. The way to deal with separatists who wish to break up the country is to tell them it's not going to happen. And I tell you what, guys, go and focus on your day jobs instead, because you're paid handsomely for doing it. So for his continued plugging of the separatist cause on social media and in print, my nomination for this week's Zoomer of the Week is Kenny Farquharson.
Oh, well, it's no surprise. We have ongoing issues with Kenny and his compatriot, which we'll talk about in a second, as we move on to the second Zoomer of the week. We talked before about the Times and what we call the Times appeasement division here. Kenny Farquharson is one person. He's the most blatant, I suppose, and he's always trying to pretend that he is under attack from nationalists, while parroting exactly what they want all the time. I mean, that kind of thing there that you talked about, David, it's really shocking. Submit to our fantasy, or there'll be violence. It's like, I don't think so at all. But maybe, it's not even the pennies dropping. I think they know. I think they're cynical and they know, because Alex Massie, for example, is also part of the Times appeasement division. I mean, there's two of them, Farquharson and Massie, work together pretty much. And he's just discovered, surprise, surprise, that Nicola's nationalism isn't that nice at all. So he wrote in here, there's a bit of soil in there and more than a hint of blood, of talking about her latest democracy denial, standing on a platform in front of a bunch of nutters and whining about democracy while simultaneously denying the result of 2 referendums and Supreme Court decision, and the list goes on. Massie and the Times appeasement division have given Sturgeon the benefit of every possible doubt for years. Even last week, as you mentioned there, they said again that breaking up the UK was a respectable cause. I thought, was that put in there to annoy me? Perhaps. It felt like that, because it's just so ridiculous a thing to say. But this is the thing they've been doing all along. They think that somehow, and Farquharson said this, if nationalism was just better, we could, it would be great. And you're like, there is no better nationalism. That's what he's saying. Well, that's one of the reasons I started the majority, because there is no better nationalism. It's always toxic, always reverts to form. Sturgeon, in standing up there, is, we've seen her previously, she said, get all the Tories out. There'll be no Tories in Scotland. We see her, the SNP document that just went out there, pamphlet went out, said, get rid of all the Tories from Scotland. It's like, it's ridiculous, and this has been going on for years. But they have been so caught up in this idea of using Sturgeon as a handy tool to beat the UK government over the head about Brexit and about Boris and about everything like that. They'll go to Sturgeon and they'll say, "Oh yeah, tell us something, give us a soundbite about Boris and so on," and of course, she's happy to do that, but it's always increasing her power all the time. And I wrote today, a couple of days ago, it's been sickening to watch, because any student of history knows nationalism, when indulged, only leads to increasing grievance and division. Read Orwell, right? He wrote about it, and these people have all read it. They all know what's going on, right? And then he turns around, he's got the cheek to turn around and say, "Oh, wait a minute, Sturgeon is actually a nationalist." It's like, F off. I mean, really, it's just ridiculous. They know fine well what they've been doing. They've been pushing her up for their own selfish gains and to sell papers. And, it's really sickening, I think.
Indeed.
John T. Scott says here, don't like Wales leader, I guess that's Mark Drakeford, but they know where their bread's buttered. Keep taking the money and start a new energy company. Okay. I'm
not too sure about that. I think so. I think my vote's in both of them. This idea that turn your feet. It's nationalism is something that is to be celebrated somehow. When it's all civic and joyous, but underneath it, we all know the core of it. It's Anglophobia, it's grievance, it's elevating mediocre politicians up. These commentators know this, and they don't highlight it. In fact, they indulge it. It's absolutely disgusting.
It's true, and a lot of the debate is actually verboten. I've made this point several times. If you try to make, I've done it myself. I've several times drawn parallels with support for example, a united Ireland, with support for breaking up Scotland and England, and it's the same people doing it. It's the same people who've got the same views. And if you point this out to say there is a section of the community, of the demographic, that holds both views, you're a bigot. I'm not a bigot at all. I'm pointing out that people of a certain persuasion, a certain background, tend to vote en masse, that is, a certain way. There's nothing bigoted about that. It's as if they're trying to stifle the debate. Now, that's anti-democratic. And you were right about what you said about Massie. He had to throw in, as they always do. You get the Liberal Democrats thing as well. They'll always try and seek a bit of balance by saying, oh, of course, and on the other side, we've had some unionists who are really, really anti-Sturgeon with their messages. Get lost. We're talking here about the nationalism trying to break up the country, and you've got to provide a bit of balance. We're not interested in this, Alex Massie. Just pack it in. We don't want to read it, honestly.
It's terrible. Right. Hey, ranting over for the moment. Anyway. Okay, Mary, maybe you can rant.
I'll try my best. Okay, so my Zoomer of the week this week is Ferguson for not being able to account for £125 million of taxpayers' money that they were given by the Scottish government. So the shipyard has told Stephen Boyle, now he's Scotland's Auditor General, and they've told him that the shipyard has no idea how the £128.25 million in public money was spent due to poor record keeping.
Just lost it in the back of the sofa.
I mean, the whole thing with the two ferries, if you remember, were only supposed to cost 97 million.
Yeah.
Right? So how does 128 million go missing? I don't think they're saying it went missing. I think they're saying we spent it, but we can't tell you what we actually spent it on.
What did they spend it on?
I don't know. So they'd received, first of all, they'd received a payment of about £83 million from CMAL, and then they got £45 million in loan payments from the Scottish government before they entered administration in August 2019. So people were wondering where the money went at that point, because if you remember, the vessels were pretty much incomplete. There was hardly anything done on them. So people were asking even then, like, you know, where is the money? There must be a lot of money left, because you've hardly done anything, so you've hardly spent anything. So people were wondering. So Stephen Boyle, the Auditor General, he said that he's tried to explore what he calls his rights of access to the private financial records from before the business was nationalised. But they're basically saying that that was the records then, and by law we don't have to show you any of those records.
That's ridiculous.
So Ferguson Marine they've said that they have the records that existed in both digital and hard copy forms, but they're not organised or categorised.
In other words, they're in boxes and in...
I don't know. What have they got? Just boxes of receipts?
Yep.
Absolutely shocking. Absolutely. It really is shocking. Right. Time is moving on. So it turns out David is going to decide today.
Okay. The twisted court of Judge David decides. Right, okay, but we'll leave the Times Appeasement Division, because that's frankly just a pair of journalists who should know better. No, it's got to go happen. Gravity has to go to Ferguson Marine. If you say, I can't tell you, but 128 million quid's gone, then as far as I'm concerned, you don't deserve to be in business another minute. And I noticed that Keith Brown, again, to quote him, said, I've got nothing further to add in this. How about I resign? That would be something. That'd be a help for a start. So Ferguson Marine, the runaway winners of this week's.
The thing I don't understand about all of that is, didn't they have to do like tax returns? And does HMRC know where the money went?
Dare I say auditors? I mean, auditors, guys, you don't get away from auditors. Nicola Sturgeon said the other week, I don't agree with the auditors' summation. Well, that's very interesting, but they're the auditors. What's the whole point of
Well, it could be an Enron type thing where the auditors are complicit. I mean, it is possible.
Let's not go
there.
That is a possibility. Right. Okay, great for that. Good win there for Mary. Good choice. In fact, there were a lot of choices this week. We had nutters ranting on about stuff on stage and all kinds of things. Please follow our Twitter for more. Right. Okay, there's a big thing here. We will be back with another show next Wednesday, December 7th, our usual time, 7 p.m, where we'll be joined by Anne-Marie Ward of Favour UK. She's the lady who tries to help those suffering from addiction and their families. And she was in the news recently because she threw an SNP councillor out of a meeting. and for reporting that he threatened her organisation's funding, saying he knew people. So we can't wait what she has to say. I mean, the main thing, of course, is the people like Anne-Marie are doing great work trying to help people, and the Scottish Government is really getting in the way. But she'll tell us more about that
next week.
Very good guest. Alan Jack, yes, John Nicholson could have been a contender, but he was my nomination last week, so I didn't want to, make the poor boy feel like he was being victimised.
Picked on, yeah.
That was good, very good. Right, so David, you got to say thank you to?
Oh, I've lost my notes, so thanks to all the donors, as always, much appreciated, guys. Sorry, my notes have gone off the screen, but
Okay.
I'll just ad lib.
Well, I'll say thank you to UK Union Voice and United Against Separation and the other pages that support us.
Right, great. And if you like what we do, please do drop a donation our way. We would really like that.
Absolutely.
And thank you, everyone, for your comments tonight. I'm still reading them and still trying to get as many up as I can. Thank you.
Oh, God, I didn't write down the thought of the week. But I think the thought is, perhaps we are close to the end. We're nearer to the end of Sturgeon's reign than the beginning. Now, how is she going to go out? Hopefully, she'll fizzle away rather than a bang. This is the preferred outcome. And then beyond that, hopefully, Scottish nationalism will also do the same. So, thank you very much for watching. It's good night from me.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night from me. Have a great week, everyone.
Take care.